Hey, everybody, welcome to the Grimdark Breakdown. And it is Rules and Points Day. So we have got these 16 rules you must need to know. The game has changed. It is very different than it was before. So I got my main man, Jace, with me as always. And I have got my main man, Eric, Slanesh's personally handpicked, chosen to help me break down these rules you must know. Welcome,
I don't know
Jace.
if that's a good thing.
It is. I'm the disembodied voice.
Oh, okay.
Once again.
All right.
I'm gonna get a picture of you with a head in a jar like Futurama.
Ooh. So here's the things we're going to cover in this video. So we're going to talk about force dispositions and missions, detachment points and army constructions, leaders and attached units, objectives, terrain and cover, hidden, plunging fire, monsters and vehicle changes, aircraft changes, charge phase, fight phase, wound allocation, Overwatch, Battleshock, Indirect fire, and hazardous. So some of these things, if you've been living under a rock, you're going to go, I don't even know what that is. Some of them you're going to go, what in the world did they change the charge phase? The answer is a lot. So we're going to go through this. We're going to try to break it down for you guys in a very simple and easy way to help you understand what this new feature is or what this new spin is. And then we'll give you from our three different perspectives if we think this is an overall for the Army a good or a bad thing. So let's keep going. Reminder, June and July, Armageddon box giveaway. Subscribe to the channel, like a video, comment Space Marine or Orc to win your half. First place gets to pick their half. Second place gets the Space Marines. I just think most people are going to want those 750 points of Orcs. But the Meta Monday on July 11th, we will be announcing the winners. So if you want to add 750 points to your army, go for it. And spoiler alert, we're putting out a metric ton of content. We already have, and we've got more coming. Every video that you comment Space Marine or Orc is a chance to win. So, Eric, Slaneshi's own, talk to us about force dispositions and missions, because the coasters, the oversized coasters, are gone.
All right, I want to paint a picture to start this off. How many people have gone into a tournament and they see their pairings and they see that they're paired into Imperial Knights on Purge the Foe? Or maybe they're paired into Deathwing Knights, Dark Angels on Taken Hold. Now, the days of getting those terrible missions against very bad matchups are over, because they've introduced force dispositions, which are missions catered to the army that you bring. Now, each detachment has an assigned force disposition. If you have multiple detachments, that means you get to choose one of them between the available options of the detachments that you choose. You get this force disposition determines what kind of missions you get to play, what the style of play is going to be. And it is for tournament play. Those of you that follow in my line of work in the tournament play, you lock it in when you create your army list. So there's no switching between the two from round to round. Now, these 5 different force dispositions are Disruption, Priority Assets, Purge the Foe, Reconnaissance, and Taken Hold. Now, some of these have the same name and some of them have new names, and I'm going to briefly explain each one of these. Disruption is kind of your honest game of Warhammer. You're going to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You're going to be a little bit of pressing buttons, a little bit of taking objectives, a little bit of holding objectives, a little bit of waving your hands in the air in your opponent's deployment zone, as Drake likes to say. Now, this is what we widely consider to be kind of the weakest, mainly because it's not pointed at a specific thing. You have to bring a list that is overall good at playing Warhammer in every different avenue, which is not as strong as being able to focus on one specific thing. Speaking of focus,
the other thing I'll just chime in on disruption is you keep in mind these are all asymmetrical. So how you play determines based on who you're paired into. Disruption is one of the few that it really also determines what your opponent's playing, that your game plan can shift around. Like one of the disruption ones, it wants you to hold the point in the middle of the board. And the average disruption army doesn't like that. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it's going to take a different play style and a different approach.
Exactly. I was going to hit on that at the end of these different dispositions affect what your opponent plays into you, just like it affects what you play. Now, let's talk about focusing on exactly what an army wants to do with priority assets. This is a new one, as well as Disruption, that we hadn't had previously as a main primary mission. This one is focusing on pressing buttons and playing on the defensive. You're going to be scoring from taking objectives at the end of your turn, as well as being able to safely push buttons and hold your expansion objective. Now, what this takes the form of in list building is going to be lots of MSU, lots of tiny, cheap units with high OC that can go and flip points and make sure that you can complete an action on the point by the end of your turn. This is going to be favoring some of those armies that previously had not been as strong and had cheap units that had not been taken as much because they didn't necessarily have a role. Moving on to the direct opposite of that, we have Purge the Foe, which, like many of you guys may have played in 10th edition, is all about killing your opponent and killing your opponent more. How you're going to score primary here is making sure that you secure a kill and making sure that you secure more kills than your opponent, as well as holding your expansion, right? This is going to be for big aggressive armies as well as big durable armies that are going to be able to hurt you and in response not get hurt as bad. It's kind of the flip side of the priority assets. You're going to want to take high damage dealing units, or you're going to want to take big, thick, durable units, maybe something like a Catan. Moving on, we have Reconnaissance, which is your standard, what you would think of when you think of go wave your hands around in your opponent's deployment zone, right? This one is all about not playing the game of Warhammer, but instead running around, doing actions, taking up space, doing those kind of things where you're maneuvering around the army, but not necessarily engaging it in a meaningful way. You're not as worried about those big new terrain objective markers as you are pressing buttons and being in the right spot at the right time. It's going to take a little bit of time to develop that style of play, but I imagine just like how the skill-intensive armies were required in 10th edition and got very good towards the end of the edition, this one will be a high skill floor, but also a high skill ceiling. You'll be rewarded for learning the playstyle. Finally, we have Take and Hold, which is going to be bog standard easy, stand on the points, stand in the terrain pieces, and hold ground against the opponent's assault, right? This is going to be your Deathwing Knights, Wrath of the Rock. I'm going to take all my defensive buffs and go stand on the point. You want big, thick, durable units that are going to stay and going to live through a turn of the opponent hitting you. Yeah, that's the disposition missions. Do my compatriots have anything they want to add to that?
I'll let you go first, Jace.
Not really. I think you're going to see reconnaissance play be more of like your really skilled players. I think more people than anything is going to lean more into the take and hold and the purge the foe, just because it's simpler to think about. Priority assets, if you're playing like a heavy MSU army, I could see people taking that because they're like, oh, I've got action monkeys. I mean, and I still got stuff to go do other things. Disruption, I think it's a middle of the road. You're going to see people that don't want to play necessarily take and hold or purge the foe, but they want to have some uniqueness in what they do. I could see people taking disruption, but reconnaissance is going to be like, if we were to tier these into beginner, intermediate, and expert, reconnaissance, and probably, well, reconnaissance is going to be your expert. Purge the foe, take and hold are going to be your easier ones, and then
I think disruption is not going to be easy.
They're the middle of the road, the priority assets and disruption, because you got to choose the right unit to do the action with.
So hot take, I think this is the best thing they've done in Warhammer.
Yeah.
Since competitive play has been a real thing. And the reason is that I play in a lot of tournaments, and I have had the dreaded, I'm going to walk up to the table and it's Purge the Foe and he's got 5 big knights.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And we're playing sweeping engagements. Awesome. Love this so much. And I have an 18 unit sisters army. This is going to be swell. Okay. I have then walked into games before where I have had Dawn of War, and it's like, oh, this is going to be great. I've got Mon Ka Tao. Super love this for me, right? The fact that your map and your mission changes based on what your opponent, it really keeps you from just getting the dreaded, oh my God, I got this mission on this layout. Unless I'm playing, a Timmy, this game is over. So I really think this is sensational. I think it's going to make a lot more close games. I don't think you're going to see nearly as many. How'd your game go? Oh, I won 90-30. You're going to see a lot more. How'd your game go? Oh, I won. It was 90-72. I think you're going to see a lot closer matches and a lot closer games. And I'm just really excited for this.
Well, the bigger thing than that, that I love about 11th, parity. You don't know what you're going to run into. You could play 5 games in a GT against 5 take and hold armies, or you could get a little bit of everything. And don't always expect the same cookie cutter list. One Blood Angels list may look a lot different than the other one, depending on what primary they're playing.
Unless you're me, and then you just always get paired into Talon Knights.
Yep.
I mean, it's
could be you.
That's what I always play.
Change number 2.
Change number 2, Jace, I think you're taking this one, right?
Change 2 is our detachment points and army constructions. GW has blessed us, the blessing, with the ability to play a little bit of Frankenstein with our armies. There are several armies that their main bread and butter detachments that won everything under the sun. Those detachments are 3DP, meaning you can't experiment. You can play it just the way you've always played it, unless they change the rules. And then you have 2DP detachments where you can actually mix match a 2DP with a 1DP for your total of 3. That is the max detachment points that you can play with. And you can play the game because there's enhancements that are a little bit souped up for these 1DPs for each army that highlight a different unit that you might want to play with or has not seen as much shine in the past edition because the rules were just awful, but now the rules may actually fit well. But you can play mix match here. You could take all 3 of the 1DP detachments they put out for each individual army if you wish. There's more ways to build. There's more ways to win. I think of it kind of like Legos. If you end up with a bunch of Lego kits, you can now build your own creation of your favorite things. But up to 3 detachments in your army is the key point. So you can play the 3 1DPs, a 2DP, and a 1, or you could just play a 3. You can balance your powerful rules with smart DP spending. You can use this to say, with this army, I really don't want to do reconnaissance with a 2DP. So I'm going to pick up this 1DP detachment that gives me the ability to swap my disposition to take and hold or to purge the foe. So that now you're not boxed into a particular play style. Now you have player agency in the way that you play. And I think this is a breath of fresh air from 10th edition, which a lot of people will argue was one of the best editions of Warhammer to ever be put out. But sometimes change is good. And I think as far as list building, the choices you have, to steal the words of the guy that's on my shirt here, the strategery that you can come up with. I think it's great. And there's a lot of spice that can be done here. If you've watched any of the 17,000 videos it seems Drake's put out in the last 2 weeks.
So I think the key thing here that's so cool is, for most of the edition in 10th, when your army got its codex, you had there were some armies that were blessed. They had multiple ways to be played. And that's great. But most of the time you had one key way to play your army. And the other detachments just weren't as good, just point blank. And that could be due to point cost of the units or just that attachment.
Or you got nerfed into oblivion.
Or certain things got nerfed, and so you had to pick something else, right? I really, really like the fact that now you won't just have a detachment just sitting there forever and ever. they have the design space to go, okay, this new detachment's coming out and it's going to be 3. And then no one plays it and they go, let's drop it to 2. Then maybe when you add something in, it becomes playable. And if it's still not there, but GW just really like the design space of it, they go, okay, you know what? We're going to drop it to 1 and we're just going to shave some rules out of it, and I think that's a very cool concept and it gives them a lot more design space. It also gives players a lot more design space in how they're going to build their armies, which I think is neat.
I think it adds almost like an element of like little packages as well,
Yep.
where you can take a primary like two cost detachment point detachment that focuses on a specific part of your army, and then you take the extra 1 cost to be able to add units that normally wouldn't synergize that now have some kind of rule support, which I think is really cool. A good example of that is like the Librarius one in Space Marines. Now, your Psyker units, you can justifiably take a Psyker unit with full rule support inside of a normal army where normally you don't have enough Psyker units to be able to take a full army's worth, which I think is very cool.
I think it's very cool. I think it's very cool.
2 caveats here.
All right, we're going to move on, so get it out.
Real quick caveats. 2 or 1, you can't take some of these 1DPs.
Some of them do have those keyword locks.
With certain keywords can't go together. So like with, I believe it's Flyblown for the Death Guard, you can't take it with another Flyblown detachment.
Yeah.
Secondly, GW has not said they're married to a 3DP coming down to 2 or a strong 2DP going up to 3. So throughout the edition, we may see changes.
They've openly said they're going to use that as a balancing mechanic, which I think is great. All right, leaders and attached units. This is very different. The core is the same, but they've kind of flipped it. So now each unit can have a leader and a support. Previously, you typically could only have a leader and then maybe a named character. And the named character, you would have to look at the leader and it would say this unit can still be attached if these named characters are leading. But now they have leaders and supports. The other interesting thing is supports are no longer solo units. So the beautiful part about this is it does give them the design space. And I'm going to just pick on sisters. So if the Dogmata all of a sudden becomes a support character, which I think she will, she's been unplayable for 2 editions. And if they decide they want to make her 35 points because she gives people an additional OC, now you don't have to worry about people spamming her as an action monkey because she's only 35 points, as an example. So I think it does open up some really cool design space. The other thing too, this one, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of, but I get it. You now have to lock in your attachments when you're building your list. So what does that mean? Your character has to be locked to the unit that they are leading. You can't move it around from game to game. Now, I know a lot of people don't do this, but as you become a more experienced player, this is a very common thing to do. And I don't just I do it in Sisters all the time. I did it at the Open every single game. I had Minister and Priest that gave the unit they led +1 to wound. When I fought a unit that had big, tough stuff, I put that in my harder hitting units. When I fought a unit that was a little bit more MSU, I put it in my spam, go kill some trash units to make them very efficient at killing trash. I wouldn't have that flexibility. Another army I do it in is World Eaters. When I would all of a sudden be fighting big, tough stuff, the Slaughterbound would go with his 8-bound or Exalted 8-bound. But then if it was an MSU army of a lot of little idiots, I'd break the Slaughterbound as a solo character. You don't have that flexibility anymore, so you do have to attach it in army creation, which is going to slow a little bit of that down, but I still don't think it's a bad thing. So here's another part that's really, really sexy. The unit stays attached even if the bodyguard is destroyed. So there was a handful of interactions where you'd have a unit that had to attach to a bodyguard that could attach to a unit. They would kill one, and then it would separate the models. That doesn't happen anymore. The other thing, too, is that their abilities persist. So what does that mean? What that means is, and we'll get to how wounds are allocated later, but if you kill the entire unit, and a lot of us had models that said, while leading a unit, you give the unit lethal hits. I'm making this up, right? You get to keep that buff because they are part of that unit lock-in step. So you no longer have 2 units that would count for Purge the Foe as an example. It is 1 unit. The character, the support, and the unit are all one thing. In some cases, against a thing like Purge the Foe, that's great. I'm going to get on my soapbox for 2 seconds. Against an army like Sisters, where that would be 3 miracle dice, they completely said get fucked. So, there's that. That all being said, I do think it's cool. The other part that is really neat, and this is the part I think a lot of people are sleeping on, attached units gain all keywords for the units. So, for the first time in a long time, and I think you're going to see certain stuff is not going to be able to lead certain stuff anymore. They gain those keywords, which I think also opens up some flexibility, because keywords, we know, key off of a lot of abilities. So I think this is overall for most armies a very positive thing. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited for it for EC because the Lords gain a lot from this. And so I love it.
I just love it that, like, there's no more guessing. When you see the character models over there in someone's list or whatever, you walk by a table and they're setting up their game, there's no more guessing. When you look at, well, scratch that. When you be able to open the app for GW tomorrow with the updated charting of games and etc., and you look at your opponent's list, say, okay, they got this one character by themselves, but these are the units I need to game plan against. Like, it makes that a lot easier.
It does. It does. It does. All right. Let's shift gears to change number 4, objectives. I think
All
this
right,
one's you, Big Eric.
Yep. So objectives have changed a lot. We're gonna have a quick moment of silence for our nice circle objective markers. All right, back to the video. So, as you guys might have known, there's no more circle objective markers anymore. They're now take the form of terrain. These are big squares, little squares, and also triangular pieces. They can block movement, they can provide cover, and they can provide hidden as well, which makes the whole fighting over objectives part of the game a lot more interactive and also a lot more immersive. You feel like you're battling over a battlefield instead of battling over an imaginary circle that's made out of neoprene and has anime girls on it.
And stinks.
And stinks, right? Also to note, the OC characteristic of models is going to matter a whole lot more because the bases, these giant big terrain footprints, are a lot bigger than the circles previously were. Also, they are quite large in between corner to corner. So high OC armies that can take battle line that's very cheap into OC are going to be a lot more favored here. They're going to be able to put more bodies on the objective to raise that OC, that objective control characteristic, so that they can take that objective and keep that objective. Also, the objective secured rule, otherwise known as sticky objectives, is a lot more common now. And the idea of holding objectives has a part to play in every single disposition. So in every single disposition, you are going to be required to hold at least one, right? That's going to be a part of your game plan. Now, some, like take and hold, are going to be more. Others, like reconnaissance, are going to be a lot less, but they do still matter. So being able to go stand on points and have lots of OC on points is going to be very, very crucial. But yeah, boys, you want to throw anything in there?
I think that the big thing to keep in mind with the way that this is that I love the concept that you no longer have to stand out in the open. Like, I mean, one of the big things that you thought about just on some board layouts is either expansion or the middle was literally in like the definition of no man's land. And it was one of those things of like, okay, whatever's going out there is getting shot into oblivion. And because of the way that now they're all terrain footprints, they're going to get defensive buffs. It's easier to hide things. And I think it does add a little bit of a good element, because I mean, these are all like thematically these like elite armies that are doing this stuff. And you're saying like, oh, I want you to go hold that hill. And they're like, should we hold it inside this building, sir? No. Go stand in the middle of the road.
I was going to say, I literally have a minor in military science, and I can tell you, very rarely is the strategically valuable point a big circle in the middle of a field.
Yeah.
And so this adds just so much more immersion and theme to the games.
And the one thing I love about it is that, you know, even though they change these objectives, now when you run a tank or something like that, you can just tow into it and fire. You don't have to be completely in a terrain footprint, which
Yeah, we'll get to that, and that's gross.
So,
all right.
Alrighty.
So speaking of that, we're going to get to number 5, which is terrain and cover. So
set it up.
you set me up beautifully, brother. So the biggest thing here is terrain still gives you the benefit of cover, but benefit of cover is completely different. So in 10th edition, the benefit of cover gave you -1 to all armor penetration that was coming in from shooting. Now it gives you minus to ballistic. What does that mean? That means that these are going to be -1 to hit when they are shooting at you, but it's very specific. And the reason that I wanted to let you guys know what in the it shows minus to hit because that makes it easy to understand, but it is minus to ballistic. The reason that's very important is because if you have units with minus to hit, they will stack, and you could have a unit that's -2 to being shot. Now, that being said, there's a couple of different things. There's exposed. You have no benefit. So I actually made a mistake in a video that I did earlier because mounted have basically the same rule as infantry. They have to completely be in the terrain footprint, which is very different from the last edition. In the last edition, if you had 9 guys in the footprint and 1 standing out on the road, that 1 guy would not get cover and the rest would. Well, as we're going to get to with one of the later things, talking about how you're going to roll dice now, they either all get it or they don't. So for beast, infantry, swarm units, for those of you that are actually taking those, and mounted, it's an all or nothing. If 1 unit is in the open, they do not have the benefit of cover. If all of them are, then they absolutely do. And they don't have to be completely, they could be just obscured where you can't see the entirety of the model. So that's great. The other thing that it does is for vehicles, it works very much the same. If you, as dumb as this is going to sound, if literally the back 20% of your model is behind that terrain feature, you do get the benefit of cover. They have to be able to see your entire frame, which we'll get to later, to be able to get it. There are also 3 different things. One is called light, one is called dense, and then there's the absolute open. This will matter when it comes to rules as can vehicles drive through. So light terrain, vehicles can drive through it. Dense terrain, there will be parts on there where they can't, just like with before. Also, depending on if they're hiding, you've got units hiding behind that, it can be line of sight blocking. Light terrain is not line of sight blocking. Dense terrain is. If you're behind the footprint, works the exact same way. The big thing though here is you can see through some terrain. So here's what I mean by that. You drive and you tow on, as Jason alluded to, you can now shoot straight through that terrain feature. You don't have to holistically be in, which not only is a buff to kind of help offset the ballistic skill situation for shooting armies, but I think it also ups the viability of some bigger models, aka things like a Baneblade, where it was very difficult to move around the board. But now the fact that it could just tow in and it can shoot gives a lot more. The last thing that I will say about terrain is that it is a lot more balanced than I've ever seen it. You know, I've gone to tournaments where they did a good job. I went to one tournament and I know he watches the videos because he's a son of a bitch and he runs tournaments in Oklahoma City and I love him to death. And we went in there and I was playing in the finals and that motherfucker picked Dawn of War for the final match because he wanted to troll us. Right. So the beautiful part is that tournament organizers will still get to pick layout A, B, or C, but your layouts are a lot more forgiving because it takes into consideration who you're playing. And the 3 that it gives you to choose from are significantly more evenly balanced. So you no longer will walk up to a table, look at the board and go, the melee army has the advantage, the shooting army has the advantage, or they are meant to be a lot more balanced. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. I think the tow-in shooting is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to allow for just new things that previously couldn't, like you talked about the Baneblade, that previously couldn't get to be played really in a competitive manner just because it was hard to move around, hard to be able to draw lines with. Now being able to walk out to the giant terrain piece, stick a tiny corner in it, and then blow something away on the other side is going to be a lot of fun.
It's a piece.
No, the one thing that I will say for the positive and one thing I'll say towards the negative, the positive is that now when you're playing a game with your friends, you got 3 different choices. You can roll a d6 and you can say, all right, this is the map we're playing because of our forced dispositions. But when you go to tournaments, pay attention to your tournament pack because they're going to have to get a lot of personnel in there to basically swap all these footprints around.
That's not how it works. So Jason hasn't played in a tournament, so he thinks it's a lot nicer than it is. Eric and I can tell you, you're the Huckleberry. So the way
Yep.
it will work is you will walk up to the table, and there will be a pile of terrain and a pile of footprints. And it's going to be, hey, you're Eric, I'm Drake. Okay, what do we got? We got matchups. So we're playing on layout 6, hammer. Okay, let's go. And you will be measuring stuff out.
Yeah.
So for those of you that, and you know who you are, never like to do all that, you're not going to have a choice. You got to get into it. It doesn't take long. It does not take long. It does not take long to set up a board, to set up a table, to do all that kind of stuff. It's not difficult. But to Jason's point, where a lot of games, your first game of the day would be set up, and then typically after your first game, you would change, and then your next two would be on the exact same. That will go away, and you're going to be setting a table up every time you walk up to it to play.
Which
Another
is
level
fun,
of
because shame on
practice.
you if you don't set up your board for the
Yeah,
next
you
people.
are a lazy piece of shit if you're the one who doesn't like to set up the board. You know who you are. So, all right, let's keep on rolling. Jace, I think this is you, brother.
All right, Grimdark Breakdown 11th edition Escalation. We are doing an Escalation League starting on July 6th, after America 250, you know what I'm saying? So there are free coaching from your team captain, how you play your army, how to play an 11th, building the right list, talking to your coach, playing against the coach, proving your gameplay questions. People, we got you covered. There is going to be a sign up in the description below. New players are welcome. Veterans are welcome. Even veterans from Foreign Wars are welcome too. But we're going to play online or in person because there's a lot of people in the DFW area. I'm not. But build, paint, play, love, have fun. That's what this is all about. And sign up will be in the link in description below. Tell your friends, and we think we're starting at 750 points.
Yes, and if you're lucky, you'll get Eric as a coach.
He beat you to it.
You did.
Yeah.
But jokes aside, guys, it's going to be really fun. So you're going to have a coach. Think of it as your team captain. They're going to help you with all this stuff. The other thing is the coaches are all going to be playing. And I don't want you to be nervous like, oh my God, I'm going to be playing them. I'm going to do my best to make sure everybody gets to play multiple coaches, because you get to play a very experienced tournament player one-on-one. And they're going to spend the entire game giving you live coaching on, you should try this, or don't do this, or try moving here. You want to watch out for this unit. And so that will be very valuable for a lot of you.
Yep, I agree, because I've played Drake probably the most of anybody in my Warhammer career. So
he loves Sisters of Battle.
I hate them, bitches.
All right, Eric, I think you're taking the lovely hidden rule.
All right. So with some of the buffs to shooting, being that you can just tow into terrain and blast away, they also wanted to incorporate a new mechanic. Now, this is brand new to 11th edition. This is the hidden mechanic. What it does is it gives units that, like he talked about, it was infantry, beast, and swarm units that are towed in, and then mounted units that are wholly within a detection range, all right? Which is a range in which they cannot be targeted. Think of it like Lone Op, except you can manipulate this detection range. Now, many different units have different abilities, different enhancements, different stratagems, to where you can give this thing a +6, you can give this thing a -3, basically to where you can interact with the range in which you can shoot the units that are on objectives. Now, if you're outside of the detection range, you cannot target the unit that is the target of the attack. If you're inside, obviously you can shoot it, but most of the time they're going to have cover. Hidden units cannot be targeted or shot. They can still move, advance, charge, fight. Now, you remain hidden until you shoot. So what that means is you're going to be able to move up your combat units, stage them into terrain. As long as it's outside of detection range, they won't have to worry about getting shot. Enemy units must get within the detection range to shoot, and some of the abilities will ignore / mess with this, right? What this allows for you to do is it protects you against what's called the alpha strike, or super fast guns being able to move up the board, draw lines, and shoot you before you even get to play the game, because that's not very fun. And if anybody's played against Mont Cartel, they know exactly what that feels like. And so part of the introduction of this mechanic was to slow down the first bit of the game, make it to where it's harder to alpha strike your opponent, make it to where it's harder to just kill units outright. It also rewards the keywords that are during the deployment phase, which is the scout moves and the infiltrating, right? It allows you to utilize your scout moves to maybe move up an infantry squad onto an objective where they're going to be hidden. It's going to allow you to infiltrate units into objectives where they're going to be hidden. And it also is going to allow for you to utilize my favorite tactic, which is pre-measuring. It's going to allow you to have a better understanding of where you need to go in order to shoot your opponent that's standing on the points.
That's maybe my single, like, I think this is going to help a lot of new players. I do think it'll have a factor in tournament play and all that, but I think a lot of players, like when I play a lot of players that are newer, one of the first things I say is I'm like, hey, I can shoot that like on turn one. Oh wait, what? And I think that, to your point, I know Eric does this, I do this. You go, what's the max movement? And then you spend several minutes like looking at every possible angle that they could shoot. But if you go, oh, how far can it move? 10 inches. That's the max it can move. That's the max that it can move. And then you just measure and you go, well, he's going to be 20 inches away from this unit. It's impossible for him to shoot me because of hidden. I don't have to worry about all the different sight lines. That I think is cool.
Yeah, and it's definitely an effect to speed up that beginning portion of the game as well.
Yep. Yep.
Jason?
And as someone who plays probably the slowest army out of the three of us, it kind of takes away the adage a walking plague marine is a dead one, because now I can't be shot across the board on turn one.
Don't worry, I'll drive my emulators up real close.
We know you will, you turd. But I mean, I love it because now, like, if I don't want to take a rhino, I don't have to. I can use those 90 points somewhere else. Maybe to get one of those annoying ass plague engines I have. And give it assault. But I don't know. I mean, I love the fact that now, as someone who has been shot off the board on turn one by Guard, by Sisters, and a host of other armies, minus Orcs, I mean, I like it.
It gives a lot. I think it gives a lot. It's a lot more forgiving for newer players. And to Eric's point, it also does kind of force the game to have an interaction, because some of these boards have some huge shooting lanes.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain armies that are just like, hey, like Guard is a great example. I'm going to throw 5 idiots out here to do an objective or to wave their hands in the air for a thing. And by the way, I've got 6 tanks that are just going to sit back at 30, 40 inches away, and you got to come out. And it's like, okay, cool story. I'm going to walk up and do the same thing, and you're not going to be able to shoot me. It does force them to come forward a little bit, and there to be a little bit more interaction, which I think is good.
Or as you would say, hide the weasel.
Yeah, exactly.
Interaction ultimately is what's going to allow for decision making and make more fun games.
Couldn't agree more, man. Okay, change number 7, Purging Fire. This has been a thing that Plunging Fire, apologies, that just straight up didn't fucking really matter in 10th edition. It's going to matter a whole lot in 11th.
So Plunging Fire, now the floors of the ruins that you're in or the vantage points that you have matter. As long as you're 3 inches above the target. I'm looking at you, Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights. They are going to abuse the piss out of Plunging Fire. Not because they can't, it's just because they're big as hell. Reroll hit rolls of 1 with Plunging Fire is incredible. With some of these big knights, especially Imperial Knights, you're almost guaranteeing that you're going to hit if you're rerolling a 1. Some weapons may improve this further, which this is crazy. You might get an extra pip of AP. You might get devastating wounds depending on the weapons, but you got to just check your data sheets and abilities.
Just to chime in real quick, they've actually changed this from when I made this slide. When I made this slide, it was reroll hits of 1. Now it is +1 to your ballistic skill. So it's +1 to hit now. So it's no longer re-rolling. So that's my fault. When I made it at first, the article I read said re-roll, but it is +1 to hit.
I mean, hit, ballistic skill, who's counting? When you're a big knight, I mean, that's a guarantee to. units below may have ways to mitigate the threat. So your positioning is going to matter in terrain. So if you put a great shooting group of chaff up top, I mean, you could plunging fire some people and it not be too nice. I mean,
Cough, cough, Emperor's Children, Noise Marines.
He.
and if you want to combat noise marines, just get in close. Their melee sucks.
Yeah, but I think
If
Don't
you
be
can
a
make
hater
it,
now.
here's a real play that is going to be a thing you need to prepare for. Rhino drives into a terrain feature. Okay. Keep in mind that you could move 3 inches and gain the heavy keyword and keep the heavy keyword. Okay.
Forgot about
You get
that.
a 3-inch disembark, and then on average, the second floor is 5 inches tall. That is the average. Now it may change, but that's the average, which means your units can get out of the transport with their disembark and a 2-inch move, stand on that terrain feature, still have the heavy keyword, and now they would be firing at +1 ballistic skill onto whatever they're shooting.
And plus
And
one
if
hit
you have
from
a
heavy.
what's that? And +1
plus
from
one to hit
heavy,
from heavy.
because 1 is ballistic skill and 1 is that. So your plus to ballistic skill will offset the cover that they potentially have, and then you get +1 to hit. Or if you have a gun that has ignore cover, then you're
even
almost
stronger.
no matter what hitting on 2s against everything, which is a very, very big deal. So I do see that. Now keep in mind, when you're up there, you still have the benefit of cover, but you no longer quote unquote like behind that wall, so you can be shot from everywhere.
Yep. There's an art to sniping.
There is an art to sniping.
I think this is a great change, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
I do too.
I'm really looking forward to utilizing it with the Noise Marines, like he had said.
Yeah, I think anything that has like 18-inch guns that also have heavy are gonna love this, because like when I saw this, the first thing I thought was my Retributors, putting them in a Rhino and doing the same trick, because they have heavy, natively hitting on 4s. So letting them go to 3s and then 2s shooting, and my army more or less ignores cover.
Is that the girls with the melta guns?
The multi-meltas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I think there's going to be a lot more armies than you think that are going to utilize this feature to create a sniper unit that they go, you might kill it, totally cool, but it is going to do some hate.
Even without heavy, if you've got a strong army that loves shooting within 24 or even 18,
Yep.
I mean, it can do a lot of damage.
Yep. All right, Eric, I think you're going to do change number 8, monsters and vehicles.
Now, y'all know I'm an EC player, so I love my monsters. And I
You don't know what vehicles other than rhinos are. Well, you got
the rhinos. The rhinos are very, very crucial. So let's break down the changes for monsters and vehicles. So all monsters and vehicles, well, some of them will have the frame keyword. What the frame keyword means is essentially if either it does not have a base, or it has lots of big overhanging bits that overhang the base, you measure from the frame of the part, not from the base specifically. So what that means is let's take the Rep-X for example, which is technically on a base. You don't measure from the base on the Rep-X, you measure from the whole of the model. Now that's with the frame keyword. So they gave that to a bunch of models, specifically like rhinos, all the different tanks, the assortment of tanks that Space Marines have. All of them got the frame keyword, so you'll be kind of almost treating it like normal. But also there are some vehicles that have bases that got the frame keyword. So think of like the speeders in Space Marines, that type of thing. Where
a
you'll
big
be
one
able
you're
to
going to see in
measure.
tons, Land Speeder Vengeances have the frame keyword now, because they have a teeny tiny little flying stand, and it's like the size of a rhino.
Right. Another big change for monsters and vehicles is pivoting is free. Now, I want to clarify this. This does not mean you get to make your move and then pivot. You measure from the start of your move to the end of your move from the same point, which means if you pivot in there, that's added into the actual movement cost because you measure from the same point, but you don't have to pay to pivot. So if you can get a new angle by being able to pivot, you can do it for free. No more paying -2, even though you're only gaining like 1.5 inches of movement. So that is a nice quality of life change. Let's talk about Crushing Impact, formerly known as Tank Shock. So previously we had Tank Shock, which was locked to vehicles only, and it was a stratagem where when you charge something, you spend the stratagem, you roll as many dice as their toughness value, and on 5s and 6s, they take mortal wounds. That has been changed to Crushing Impact, which is now all monsters and vehicles, right? Looking at you, Winged Demon Princess. And it's the exact same thing. You roll dice based off their number of toughness. On 5s and 6s, they take mortal wounds, except there's a change. If you roll any 1s, you take the mortal wounds now. So it adds a little bit more stakes. Because believe it or not, whenever you try and drive your Vindicator straight into the fight, trying to go punch something, it might hurt itself in the process.
First
So,
game I watched, just so you know, was on 40K in 40 minutes. The guy charged his Maliceptor in. He did 1 damage on Crushing Impact, did 5 damage to himself.
yeah, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot more swingy, which is going to make it a lot less of a consistent damage dealing for finishing off that last wound or two with your big tanks.
Here's what I can't wait for is when you have something come in, Crushing Impact, kills a unit, causes a deadly demise, then they take enough damage to kill them, which causes a deadly demise, which creates a domino effect, thus taking out chunks of other units on both sides. I can't wait.
I love a good deadly demise chain reaction.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, so that's what the big monster and vehicle changes are. For the most part, the frame is pretty consistent. They just put a keyword behind it. Free pivots, and then the Crushing Impact is going to be a lot of fun. Mainly, you know, for me as an EC player, if I need that little bit of extra mortal wounds, because, you know, enough is never enough with the Slaneshi boys, then I can throw this tank shot or the Crushing Impact on my Winged Demon Princess now as well.
Real quick pop
So-
quiz. Eric, did any of your units get the frame keyword?
But yes, my rhinos did.
Okay. My rhinos
So
did.
here's something I need you to get used to. This is my phone. This is how things are going to deploy a lot of the time. They're going to deploy on the line like this. The line's right here. Start of the movement phase, they're going to go, I'm going to pivot so that I can get that extra inch, half an inch, 3/4 of an inch, and then they're going to move. So just be aware. That's going to be a much bigger deal on some things, like on a Rhino. It's probably not going to be the biggest of deal. On like Drakari boats, like
Oh, yeah.
that was the whole reason for the pivot rule, because when it turned, it gained 2 inches of movement. So you need to understand that pivoting is a big deal, and that a lot of models in essence are going to gain 1 to 2 inches of movement. Now they can't do that every turn, right? Because it only works on the turn you start, but it will help that. So like the best example of this is I was talking to a crazy Gene Stealer cult player in our Discord about his Baneblade obsession. And he was like, if I start the Baneblade like this and I turn it, he goes, that's like 3 inches of movement. And I was like, yep. And he goes, and then I can drive and spin it in any direction I need. And he goes, so my Baneblade now goes 16 inches. And I was like, sure, I guess it does. So just something to think about, y'all. All right, let's keep on rolling. Aircraft. Jace, I think you're going to take the birds.
Yep, aircraft. Guess what? They still are kind of meh, but they're at least allowing them to be playable. Aircraft can only be set up in strategic reserves. They cannot start on the battlefield. So basically, think of it like air support. They can do strafing runs on units on the battlefield, but it moves across the battlefield as it takes its flight. It must exit unless it has the hover keyword. If it has the hover keyword, it can stay on the battlefield, but must exit the battlefield at the end of the strafing run. Aircraft have no OC, so you're not going to be able to fly across the board and say, hey, I'm going to snatch this objective from you. No, that's not how this is going to work. They have no move characteristic. They may not, they are not units that maneuver, they strike. So they're going to shoot, they're going to leave. This isn't like you got a Harrier jet that's going to sit down on the battlefield and hover there. It's going to get its job done and it's going to go. And so aircraft, I could see some armies using it, but I think points are better allocated in other locations besides bringing aircraft. I wish they would do more with aircraft, but that's like saying, hey, I wish they would lower this one unit in my army by 200 points. I don't think they are, but at least they're doing something. And one thing we forgot about flying, taking to the skies. A lot of your flying units can now take to the skies from the last slide at sacrificing 2 inches of their movement. So that
Yeah,
encompasses all flying.
think of it like in layman's terms. Think of it as it comes down, it shoots, it's down on the battlefield long enough for the opponent to shoot back, and then it goes right back up.
Yep. Like an
All
orbital
right.
strike.
No, we got to see, like, if they stay the same point cost, I don't think this matters. Most aircraft is pointed to a place where it's literally unplayable. If, though, on the flip side, like planes that were 200 points go down to like 140 points, okay, then there could be like an actual thing. You use them to drop troops off as a troop transport to get them like deep into the field. You could use it as things where, okay, they can actually do damage and, you know, stuff like that.
Oh.
Like there could have some real fun thematic stuff, but like the only army that I play that has a plane is Dark Angels, and like neither of their planes are worth anything.
Hey,
And
don't disrespect the Dark Talon. All right.
do you own one? Because I own one right there. And
No, I sold
it's
Primary.
yeah, okay. and it has set up there since the day I bought it and finished painting it. You know, so like if all of a sudden that mother trucker is 80 points, I might be like, you know what? It can kill a scout squad or something. Maybe.
Silly question here.
Maybe.
So it's aircraft. It's going to do a strafing run. It will be 3 inches above the battlefield. So would they get plunging fire?
So the ruling on the plunging fire is that you can't have any part of your model overhanging the part that you're going down on. So you can't have like in like 3rd and 4th edition when they had like tanks sitting on top of buildings to get the plunging fire rules. You have to be able to wholly fit on the little ledges.
And the way that the strafing run works technically is you bring it in from reserve here and you literally have to fly it to the other side of the board. So basically what you've got to do is like most of your guns are going to be like 1,000 range. And so like you have to be able to draw a line of sight during your path, which is not going to be difficult to do. Like that part's actually going to be very easy to do, but most planes don't have a lot of guns. It's like 2 las guns or something like that. So like, I don't know. I think if they make them actually cheap, there could be some fun stuff here and it could be neat. But if they're still pointed to the moon, that's a waste of time.
Las guns.
Absolutely.
You might be able to pop off somebody's tank in the back.
Maybe. Let's get to the real man sport. Talk about the charge phase, okay? Or where the ladies thrive in the charge. Okay, so charge phase is awesome. It is awesome. I love it. Okay, there's one tiny thing that's not great, but I'll take it. You know what? It's called compromise. So you no longer have to declare your charge target. This is heaven for melee armies. I'd love to hear all the shooting armies. Give me your tears in the chat. I will soak them and I will bathe in them and I will laugh at you. So the worst thing in the world for a melee army is there is a scout squad 4 inches in front of you. And then there's a rep X that is 7 inches. And you're like, I want that rep X. But if I fail and I stand out in the open, that rep X is going to yeet me into the sun.
Dust in the wind.
Yeah. So do I try to hopefully charge into this and get a really big charge and then slingshot in to tie it up to make it have to fall back or shoot while engaged? And so you're trying to think of all these different plays. Now you just roll the dice. After you roll them, you declare where you are charging. This is so huge because it was either you go for the risky charge that you wanted or you take the safe charge that you didn't want. It's going to give so much more consistency to the charge phase. The other big element of this is now you no longer round up. So here's what I mean by that. So before, if you were 8.1 or you were 8.9 inches away, you only needed an 8 because there was 1 inch engagement. So you were fine. The way this works now is to land a charge, you must be base to base. So if you are 8.1 or you are 8.9, you need a 9-inch charge to be successful. So theoretically, all of your charges that you're going to need to do now need to be 1 inch longer. I think if you asked 100 melee players, would you take 1 inch of increase to all your charges, but now you get to roll your charge roll and then pick? Literally 100 would say, I'll take that deal. And then if you said, oh, by the way, I'm going to add in the fact you can no longer be overwatched in the charge phase, they would probably kiss you on the mouth. So this is, I think, phenomenal. If you look at all of 10th edition, we had little blips where melee armies were ruling it, but it's a shooting game and it's been a shooting edition. I do not think that that's going to necessarily change. I think shooting armies are still going to be incredible, but I think that this starts to give melee armies a better chance to really bring it in. When you add the other rules, but then you really go, I'm going to give you more versatility. This also allows for more skill expression that I think is going to be really, really cool. I know we're going to get to the fight phase and the overfights and all that stuff next with Eric. But when I started playing World Eaters and I started to understand the charge phase and the fight phase, it changed my perspective. And this stuff, boy, this is sexy. This is sexy. What do y'all think? Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great change. And I'm really looking forward to using it. I'm really looking forward to see how it interacts with the EC Army rule, because you have to, well, rules is written now, you can't declare a charge onto somebody. So it's going to be nice being able to see the roll before I declare where it's going.
Yep.
And so that'll allow me to play around that rule a lot easier.
Love it. When you fail a charge, it sucks because you're just like, damn. But now you roll it and say, I have options. So it's like sometimes it's going to be information overload for people that are new and not know what to exactly charge out of their options. And some people, it's like, oh, you didn't space these right. I'm about to mess you up.
Yeah, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. All right. Be my bash bro here, Eric. Talk to us about Change 11, the fight phase.
All right. Fight phase has been redone as well. The biggest thing is fights first is not just a gotcha, click, dead button. Okay? They made it a lot more balanced. So what this means is once all the fights first, everybody's charged this, that, and the other, the charging player, meaning the player whose turn it is, always gets to pick one of their fights first units first. Which means if I do 5 charges and I charge 1 fights first unit, I'm always going to start with the fights first unit. So make sure I kill your fights first threat. That way I can activate everywhere else. So it gives a lot more agency to be able to play around fights first, because it was a bit of a busted ability in 10th edition. Now, with that being said, they have spread the fights first ability around more, especially with some of the 1-cost attachments, as well as I imagine a lot of the fights first units are going to take a point decrease.
That's what they said yesterday.
More in
all
line.
units with fight first are going to get a points decrease.
So that's the biggest change in terms of keywords, that type of abilities. Second big change is at the start of the fight phase, all the pile-ins happen, meaning every unit that made a charge move happens at once.
Give it to me, baby.
What this means is you get to see where everything's going to go. You get to basically dictate where all of your models are going to be, how many models are going to be swinging into what, right at the start of the fight phase at the same time. Now, what you're thinking is, oh man, now I can't do my fun little plays where I slingshot units that I didn't get to pile in here, so I get to pile in there. Oh no, I already piled in. Just kidding. You get what's called the overfight mechanic. So if you have 2 units that charge the same enemy unit, and one of them fights and kills the enemy unit, you're in luck, because that second unit still gets to activate. They get to make a second pile-in move, which is also known as the overfight move, into an eligible target. Then they can activate as normal. So what this means is these big World Eater, the big melee armies, World Eaters, Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, are still going to be able to play off. Hush, honey. These melee armies are going to be able to pull off the same little tricks that they used to do. It's just going to be easier to play around, right? It's going to be easier to orchestrate and easier to play around. I absolutely love this.
I think it also will feel like, honestly, like, and Eric, you probably feel the same way. Like you'll be playing at some of the higher end tables against good players, and you'll start pulling off some of the fight shenanigans, and people will get in their feels because they're like, because it's like they feel like you're like being slimy with rules, and you're like, no, this is the way the game plays. But there's so few players that play the fight phase and micro their movements that it felt, at least to me sometimes, it would feel like players didn't like it. But now that there's just like, they've just named it, like the tactic that like the melee players kind of created is this overfight mechanic. They just straight up named it. I think that that's great. And the fact that it's now stronger from the perspective of like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm going to charge into this because I didn't actually roll far enough to get to that one guy that's 4 inches away, but I got 6-inch pile in. So when unit A kills this, unit B is launching into that thing, and then they're going to kill that.
It just means, armies with army-wide 6-inch pile and consolidate are going to be real good.
Yep. Sisters of Battle.
This is a small thing, which I imagine is going to be FAQ'd, but I want to put it out there. There right now, rules is written as the heroic intervention stratagem is written right now. Heroic intervention does not negate your charge bonus in 11th edition. Meaning, if you are on the defense and they charge you and you heroic, you still do rules as written. This is subject to FAQ. You still do get the fights first, but they obviously can play around that, meaning they get to pick the first unit to activate.
So it'll be interesting. I think this is sensational. I think that, at least me personally, I know Eric probably feels the same way. Like, I'm going to need to get in multiple games so that I can get a real feel for this, because it is different than the way 10th edition plays, but I think it is a huge benefit.
It's going to be a lot of fun playing it, learning it.
Yeah. All right. Wound allocation. Okay. So here's the synopsis. If you don't learn anything else from this piece, your characters are going to live a lot longer and more often than they used to. So part of what they want to change is the ability to do true blue fast rolling. So before, if you had and I'm going to use a super easy example. You have 5 Space Marines that do not have an invuln and a character that does. It would work before is you would have to make sure you don't roll too many dice, and you would roll dice for all of your characters, and then you would roll dice for your second character, for the actual character after you'd gone through them. Now the way that this works is you create what's literally called groups, and you go, okay, all of these saves are going into this unit. I'm going to roll all 20 dice at the same time, and the lowest dice, the fails, have to go into the unit first. So what that is going to mean is a lot of the time your characters are going to survive because of how the dice rolling is now orchestrated. Because before, you'd go, okay, I'm going to roll 6 dice for the squad, and then I've got to hold these 4 dice over here, and I'm going to roll these 4 dice for the character. But now you're just going to roll the 10 dice, and if you have 6 bad ones, they all will go to the unit and not the character. The other thing, too, that is going to be a nerf, and I know you guys know I love my girls, it's going to be a nerf, though, to a lot of armies that have what I'm going to call manipulation of roles, is that you can no longer choose to, like, do I want to use the stratagem? Do I not want to use the stratagem? Do I want to use a miracle dice? You can't go, okay, you gave me 4 saves. I'm going to hold 1 and I'm going to roll the other 3. And if my outcomes are good, I'm not going to use the stratagem, the miracle dice, the ability. Now, and we'll have to see how the FAQs come, but they've stated that any dice manipulation rolls have to be declared before you roll your dice. So if you have something that lets you re-roll a dice, if you have something that lets you blank a wound, if you have something that's a miracle dice, you're going to, before you roll those 4 dice, have to go, okay, I'm taking this one out because I'm going to use this ability, this blank, this miracle dice. Now I'm going to roll my other 3. And you may save all 3 of them and you didn't need to do it. That's about the only negative to this. Otherwise, I think it's going to make games significantly fast. Mortal Wounds, also forgot about this part. This is actually a big one, is just taken at the end of that batch. So previously, if you have 3 different guns and 3 of them had more, and they all had mortal wounds, you just stacked the mortals till the end to take them, and you did all your saves, and then you did mortals. Doesn't work that way anymore. You do your fails, allocate those mortals, then go to the next weapon. And so again, it's meant to make it go faster because it really didn't matter in the past. People might try to cheese it to get them onto the character or something, but the character's going to be the last thing to take the wounds anyway now. So that's the way it will go. Thoughts?
I like it.
I like it too. It makes precision way better. And
Yep.
I got the precision army.
Yeah, precision is going to be a big deal that you're going to have to be careful for. So remember, melee precision is incredibly situational. You're talking to a guy who played an army that actually had melee precision, and I can count on one hand how many times it really came up. But shooting precision is a very big deal. It's a very big deal. So I think it's going to be very important. All right, you want to talk about that young Overwatch? So I will say, at the time of recording, the first article that came out did say that it was literally only going to be able to be used on normal movement. Now we know that it is going to be the entire movement phase, which will include deep strokes.
So, me personally, I love this. I'm guilty of falling for bait. Ooh, piece of candy. Let me shoot it for 1 CP when I've got 6. Overwatch happens at the end of the movement phase, which means you can't be baited anymore. They're going to make all their moves. They're going to make all their deep strikes. Then you say, I'm going to Overwatch, and I'm going to Overwatch that one, which makes it where now the decision really isn't on the person that's choosing to Overwatch. The decision is on the person that wants to protect this unit to if they really want to move it in that position. So now you're changing who's got to do the thinking. But if you're going to allow all that, they're going to take something away. That thing they take away is overwatching in the charge phase. No more, hey, they're charging me. Oh, wait, let me see if I can chip some of them off before they get here. No, you should have done that already because they probably in the beginning had to move to get to that point to charge you. So there is going to be some things to think about. So no more Overwatch in the charge phase. I can see people that aren't familiar with this rule to try to take advantage of that because it's the way it used to be. It's no longer. Now, here's the thing about Overwatches. They hit on 6s. There are no hit rerolls anymore, no modifications to how you can Overwatch on something less, unless like it's the
ability on the unit specifically
like
states it.
The Defiler for Thousand Suns, it says it can Overwatch on a 4-up. Torrent weapons become incredible. And I love it because my army has a lot of torrent weapons. I love it. And a lot of them have anti-infantry too. But regular guns, less reliable. Flamers, again, looking at you, Thousand Suns, and Salamanders become a lot scarier. And it allows for counterplay to be more of a thing between both players. You get to see the entire board state first. The active player doesn't have to play with all the, I gotcha. I was able to move my thing and get away with it. No, you got to move it all. Then I get to pick. Easier to hide, reposition, retreat some units. And the big thing here, fewer gotcha moments.
Yeah. It'll also keep you from having to go, hey, I'm going to throw these 3 little action monkeys. I'm going to walk them out in front of your big unit. And it's like, it cuts a lot of that out, which doesn't really happen at more competitive situations. The other big thing is Overwatch is now technically within the Overwatch ruling. It's called snap shooting.
Yep.
And we've already seen a lot of stratagems on the new detachments say this unit, when this happens, the unit gets to snap shoot. And it's a way to future-proof rules for letting units shoot back or do out-of-sequence shooting and not have to worry about, well, do they get this ability? And do they get this? And do they get this? Because snap shooting basically states you hit on 6s and that can't be modified and it can't be re-rolled for any reason whatsoever, and it has to be within 24 inches. So I think we'll see as they go through all the codexes and people get their books that a lot of the shoot back stratagems are going to say snap shooting type situation, so that they can future proof a lot of that and save themselves the FAQs.
I love it because I think it's going to speed the game up drastically. There's
I
no
think it
more,
will too. I
I'm
will
going
too.
to Overwatch this. You know what? No, I'm not.
Well, because in the movement phase, you'd go like there was a game that you played of like, shit, I can't move this thing last, but I can't move this thing first because this is what I don't want him to overwatch. I'm going to move it in the dead middle. I'm going to move all the other stuff and just go. And now you just know, like, I'm going to move all my units and then he's going to pick his choice. The other beautiful part too is it does give you the ability to not like what I'm going to do, like that reminder, because some of the time you would have to like, you'd move a unit and like some players would get upset if you do moves too fast. So I would go, anything? And they'd be like, no. And it's like, you're asking them like, are you doing anything? Can I keep moving? And now you just move all of your units. And it's a great way to signal to your player, it's your turn to do rapid ingresses if you want, or it's your turn to do overwatches by saying, I'm done moving. Then they would go, okay, I'm going to overwatch this. And then I'm going to rapid ingress this. Oh shit. I never thought about that. So theoretically, I'm curious what the sequence order is. If you overwatch and kill something, that could free up space for a rapid ingress. Eric, does that sound right?
Yes, but and I could be wrong about this, but usually when it comes to order of operations, and this is how it went in 10th edition, and I'll have to make sure that this is how it goes in 11th. It is the player whose turn it is.
Yeah,
So
who gets to
then
decide
your
what
opponent
happens
would
first?
pick which one goes first. I believe that's how that goes.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking of real life scenario. Real life scenario, you go, I'm done moving, and you're going to go, okay, I want to overwatch. So I guess as the player whose turn it is, you could go totally fine. You can overwatch. If you have any rapid ingresses, you need to do that. They're going to have to do an FAQ because
Yeah.
otherwise it's going to cause conflict at the table.
Absolutely. Another thing to note is units with sustained hits and lethal hits, they do still get those.
That is
So
true.
the sustained hits and lethal hits units are going to be really good. Like the big Azrael brick that has sustained lethal, still going to be a great Overwatch.
Yep. 100%. All right. Battle Shock, number 14. So Battle Shock, big difference. Battle Shock is now at half strength. It used to be when you're below half strength. This is a very big deal because a lot of rules we're seeing where it would say when a unit falls below half strength, X happens. It is now just when a unit is at half strength, this happens. Same thing with Battle Shock. So this will start to trigger more often because there was a lot of units that what would happen is they would be a 10-man unit and you would all of a sudden get them to 5 models. Well, the next time you attack them, they die, right? So this does mean that Battle Shock will start happening more often, but also there are certain units, like the perfect example is like Chaos Spawn. There's only 2 of them. So it was actually like not possible to get them below half. It is now. So you're going to see a lot more Battle Shock. Here's the other big thing. It does not go away. So the way it worked before was I get Battle Shocked through an ability or through anything other than me being at below half strength. At the next turn, Battle Shock falls off and you're just business as usual. Now, if you're below half strength, you would have to do a new test for Battle Shock. But here's the big thing. You all right over there, Jason?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just readjusting. Us old people, we got to keep moving.
So here's the very, very big deal in this. If you're at below half strength or you get Battle Shocked through an ability at the start of the next turn, you are still Battle Shocked, which means you cannot use a stratagem to then pass said Battle Shock. So it is a very big deal that once you get Battle Shocked, you are going to have to roll it to get out of it. About the only way you're going to get out of a Battle Shock is the handful of reasons why, okay, I got shot and I got to half health. Then at the start of the next phase of my turn, I take a Battle Shock test. That's where your insane bravery is going to come in, that you could potentially use. But when armies Battle Shock you, you're going to see it lasting more. You're going to see it as a more persistent threat and persistent thing out there. For those of you that don't remember, Battle Shock means you can't use stratagem. Your OC here's a big deal. Also, no longer goes to 0. It's just a dash. So before, a lot of the time, it'd be like, okay, well, you take it to 0, but then I have a banner guy that makes it go back to 1. That doesn't work. So there are some things. You can't do actions. You're not going to be able to do fallbacks. You're not going to be able to use stratagems. And anything I'm forgetting? I think that's it. So I think Battleshock is going to go from
No
a basically
actions, yeah.
no actions. I think it's going to go from a worthless, super situational, doesn't typically matter in games. So I think if you play a tournament of 5 games, I think at least 1 or 2 of those games, Battleshock is going to have a real factor in that game.
Here's my thing about Battleshocks. I get it that you are going to be able, and this is a hot take, that you're going to be able to take people from OC down to no OC because their leadership, or not leadership, but their OC because their Battleshock is now a dash. What I, for the life of me, don't understand, because there's not a lot of people that do it or have the ability to do it, is being able to reduce somebody's OC to that dash, saying, nah, you can only reduce it to 1 unless they're Battleshock. That takes, to me, a lot of the lore behind an army out of it. But I think it's something that can be played around still by players, because you're not going to run a bunch of units that do that. And it just
Some
gives
armies will.
Some armies would, but there's some matchups they will struggle in. But I think, like, I get it with the Battleshock, but when it comes to leadership, I just think, or OC that happens because of a Battleshock or whatever, if it's going to be able to be reduced to a dash, then I think that there should be other ways to reduce it to a dash too. That's just my hot take.
Well, there are units that actually reduce OC. So,
well, yeah, but not to a dash, to 1.
No, there are units that can like reduce it to 0.
Interesting. I've not seen
Eric, any thoughts?
I really like it. It gives purpose behind like the Battleshock armies that have previously been really bad. Thinking
Tyranids.
like Plague Legion, Nightmare Hunt, those type of things.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see, because it seems like with the way that this works, Battleshock armies might be really good,
They could be
especially
very
into
good.
like disruption assets or take and hold armies.
Even Purge. I mean, or take and hold. Yeah. Basically everything but Purge, I think this could be very good into.
You hadn't seen enough Tyranids. You're about to.
Shadow in the Warp is going to be fun. All right, let's talk about Indirect Fire, everybody's favorite mechanic. And by the way, before we tell you this, they actually said yesterday, Indirect Fire guns are going down in points.
Thank God.
Yep.
Plague Roach Crawlers might be worth a shit now.
All right, ready for some indirect fire. Much less accurate now, which means base. We're not including the spotters. All indirect is going to hit on 6s. It's
Yep.
going to always have the benefit of cover. The best you can ever hit on is 4s, just like in 9th. And now, just like in 10th, I apologize. Now, just like Overwatch, there are now no more rerolls to hit on
It's a
indirect
very
fire.
big deal.
Very big deal, because previously, hitting on 4s is not that bad when you reroll the hit roll. Now let's talk about the kind of shadow buff to these is the spotters. If a friendly unit can see the target that the artillery is shooting at, and the artillery is stationary, which most of the time it will be, you'll be hitting on 4s. Otherwise, you're hitting on 6s. So it basically implements the TAL mechanic of I gotta see you to hit you. And so, with that being said, there are going to be some point decreases that are added on top of this, which I think is going to give it, almost like the aircraft, a very niche but cut out, defined role to play.
I think it'll be interesting because I think there's a couple of scenarios where artillery could actually have some viability. So obviously I picked guard for this picture, right? But like, if deep strike starts becoming a really, really scary thing, picking 200 points of artillery units to sit in your back line that their sole job is to like do some shooting, and you're not expecting them to ever like do anything incredible, but they can screen out your backfield, hold your home point and just get some like pot shots where you fire all, they could be anti-infantry and all 3 times you're going to shoot them at a unit and your expectation is you kill 1 or 2 models, right? Like there could be some viability. I think one of the other thing is there is actually, and sisters have this, I know a lot of armies have this, their artillery gun does Battleshock test. So, I think there's also a potential world where you go, okay, I might look at it because I might do some damage, but I could also potentially force battle shocks, which could be very spicy. I'm thinking about like, let's just think about like this is an example. Your Emperor's Children. Can you imagine if you get artillery shot on turn 1 on one of your demon princes? Let's just say it does 3 damage, which is going to suck, but it's not the end of the world. But then your demon prince on turn 1 gets battle shocked. Like that's definitely not an ideal situation. And so I do think there is some interesting potential play here where there could be an element. The biggest thing is points and repeat, because typically armies only have one artillery unit, unless you're like, I think Guard is the only one to my knowledge that has multiple.
Yep.
I guess Space Marines have Whirlwind and Disrupt. What are they called? Just not Disruption. The infantry guys that have the really stupid looking guns. Desolator Marines. Desolators. And so like most armies have one, maybe two. Guard, I think Guard has like 4, but the problem is that if you're going to get the tax of like, okay, the second one costs more and the third one costs more, that's definitely going to hurt it. But I could see a world where putting one to screen an area of your backfield and it does shots, and maybe the ability on it isn't the worst idea if they're pointed correctly.
Yeah. I mean, the Plate Burst Crawler, has been virtually unplayable, but I mean, Death Guard has a full detachment dealing around artillery. So, and the unit isn't bad. It's just way overcosted for what it does. So them bringing it down,
you're paying the premium for that for that indirect fire keyword.
Yeah, and the thing's got spitters and it's got an actual cannon on it. I could see some armies actually using their indirect mortar fire as a viable shooting platform potentially.
That's the only other thing is that turn 1 or turn 2 while the game's getting going, using it to just take pot shots at rhinos or whatever, I think is totally great. And then I think there's a world where, as long as it's not an artillery unit that only moves like 4, so a lot of them are on what I like to call rhino chassis or something similar where they move 10 inches,
like a hole.
You just drive them up as a tank, and you're not worrying about the indirect, so you use that versatility on the first couple turns, and then you may use it when you really need to reach something on the other side. But I don't know. I'm hopeful that they point this in a way that they can be viable but not toxic, because I will tell you, like, and I can just speak from a sister's. There was about a 3-month period where Exorcists were like the best unit in the game, and it was not fun. Like, I took it to one RT and didn't take it to another, because every player I played I went 3-0, and every single player after turn 1, you could see they were checked out of the game, because it's not fun. It's not fun when artillery is overpowered.
Yeah, when I was playing Voton, you took out both of the carriers that had stool pigeons in it of mine.
Yeah, and shit happens. Stupid. Shit happens. Stupid. Listen, I can tell you the worse than that. The guy that I played in the finals of that RT was playing Grey Knights, and I killed 2 of his 3 Dread Knights on turn 1. I went first, and I just shot him off the board.
Let me sacrifice this 3 for a 6, and
yep, pretty much. All right. Last but not least, Hazardous. Okay.
Number 16.
So here's the easiest thing. I'm going to walk through this, but if you are 2 wound infantry, you love this or more. If you're 1 wound, more people are going to die. It is what it is. So now Hazardous fails on a 1 or 2. So you will have twice as many Hazardous failures as you had before, which means that it is more dangerous. A lot of rules have also changed to Hazardous. So like desperate escape things, the way that getting out of transports has now actually changed. So I'm going to walk through it all, but the big deal is on infantry, it is now only 1 mortal wound instead of 3. 3 was normally going to kill the character, right? It was going to kill the Space Marine. This is a big deal because on Space Marines, you might fail 2 getting out of a rhino. Instead of 2 guys dying, 1 is dying. Now, if you're 1 wound infantry like my girl here, it's just going to be just as bad, but it does help. With vehicles, it is still 3 wounds, but there's a couple of things that are also changing. So like, I'm going to give you a real example. Disembarking from a transport, Before, the way it worked was you would roll, does the transport blow up? Then you would have to get all of your units out, do your hazardous test, and they would go. Now, because this is a hazardous action, the way it actually works now is a completely different interaction. You can't get as cheeky as you did because it states that your model has to be as close to the transport as humanly possible, and it actually has to touch the transport if possible. So doing that with 2-inch engagement range is going to make it trickier, which means more hazardous tests are going to happen. So you'll have the hazardous test of them getting out. You'll have then whoever die, you have to set them all up. Then you roll to see if the car blows up. And if it blows up, then you would take those wounds and remove it. So I think hazardous is going to come up more in games, but the big deal is you're going to use it more because it was very, very unlikely for you to go, hey, I'm going to fire these plasma guns because I'm worried that when the unit explodes, I lose my plasma gun. It's not how it works anymore. When little Timmy shoots his plasma gun and he explodes, Jerome is going to come over, pick up that plasma gun, and he's going to start shooting it. So it's one of those situations where you can now, when the unit dies, kill off an idiot and keep the special weapon. So I think a combination of that and it going down to 1 damage, I think that I don't think it's a plus or a minus. I think it's a side grade, but I do think it brings more agency and you will actually use plasma, whereas you wouldn't use it before. That all being said, there's no world you're going to overcharge plasmas on a one that has 3 or 4 guns on a vehicle and risk taking 9 potential wounds. That's still not going to happen. But for infantry purposes, I think you'll see a lot more overcharged plasma.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I love it. I
I
mean,
do too.
my little EC plasma pistols finally have a use. I don't have to not
Mhm.
overcharge them and risk losing 6 melee attacks. So
Yep.
I
love
love
it.
being able to run the plague bus and hopping out a malignant plague caster, not have to worry about him blowing himself up because I overcharge witchfire.
Yep, 100%. So all in all, these are the 16 of the biggest changes that we saw that we wanted you guys to know about. We wanted to walk through them with you guys. Points should be out probably by the time you're watching this video. So we're going to have a ton of more content coming out. We're going to have reviews of the points. We're going to have tier list of who won and who lost from a points perspective. And then we're going to be doing army list videos for nearly every army in the game of how they're going to field. So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you like this. If you do us all the YouTube pleasantries, drop a like, subscribe, all the stuff that helps the YouTube algorithms. Any final thoughts, Jace?
When you start playing 11th tomorrow, if you haven't already, you and the person you're playing are starting a new game. Neither of you are going to have the rules down just right. Help each other, make the game enjoyable. Don't get frustrated.
Heck yeah. Eric, closing thoughts?
Go make a new list, something new, some new combination, and have fun with it.
You literally have the same thought as me. Don't take the list you've been playing for the last 6 months and just try to readjust your points. You're going to be learning the game. So if there was ever a time for you to make a gimmicky, fun, something different list, do it. If you're of age, so YouTube doesn't throw me in jail here, have a beer hammer game with a bud. Grab some drinks, grab some Voodoo Rangers, whatever your preference is. Yeah, you like that, Jace?
No, the nut.
Yeah. And, and have some fun, man. This is going to be exciting. This is going to be fun. We're going to be doing a ton of games on the channel and you're going to hear, if you watch our games, they're going to be goofy and they're going to be fun because we're learning and we're having fun. And that's the whole point of the game, guys. So get out there, play some games, have some fun. Hopefully this is helpful. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.